When it comes to the civil unrest and surviving riots that seem to be happening more and more, waiting until you're in the middle of it to figure out what you should do in order to survive is not the most effective course of action. Hey everybody, I'm Brian Duff, and I want to thank you so much for tuning into this video. And in today's episode, we're going over to Paris, France to watch a group of law enforcement officers, a group of trained professionals deal with a riot. And in watching them deal with it, you're going to see the good, the bad, the ugly, and the awesome. So that way you have a litmus test of where you're at and where you want to be should you find yourself in the middle of some crazy mayhem. All right, so now let's break this down by the good, the bad, the ugly, and the awesome. Let's start with the good. Let's look at the officer on the far side of the screen leaning forward into his shield. He has his feet, his ankles, his knees, his hips square. His shoulders are square with his hips. He's leaning forward but not overextending, so he's too far forward, so he's out of balance. Look at his partner behind him. His partner has his hand up high, ready to help support him should he take a charge into that shield. Now let's look at the not so good and maybe the bad here. Let's look at this officer with his asp extended. Now, one thing, you see the asp here in the front, the asp that's extended. He is the only one here that has an asp out of this group. Everybody else has PR-24s, so I am going to assume he doesn't normally work with these officers, possibly. And by his body position, look at how he is compared to the other officer. It's going to be a repeat theme here as we go through this. He's not in that great of a body position. He does not exude the air of confidence the other officer does, doesn't appear to be as ready to take a charge. And look at his shield. Where is his shield? It's underneath the arm of the officer to his left. And unfortunately for this officer, it doesn't appear that his support officer behind him to be that squared away, because look at his body position. He is off balance as well. He is leaning backwards. He is actually kind of pulling this guy like, let's get out of here, as opposed to leaning in and moving backwards. In other words, giving some support, giving positive support in case that officer has to deal with something. He's like, let's get out of here. Another thing, equipment. Situational awareness with your equipment is so important. Look at his protective mask. It's hanging down around his neck for whatever reason. The problem I have with that, though, is that is a tether, man. That is a tether that if a rider gets a hold of that, this guy may have a really tough time, because it'll be fairly easy to ragdoll this guy to the ground just by dragging him around by that tether. And the number one rule of Riot Club is always stay on your feet. Never go to the ground. That's the number one rule of Riot Club, is to stay on your feet. And so now let's go ahead and watch them back out of here. I'm going to stop it and comment along the way. Okay, so let's look at these positioning right now. Look at the officer that we're calling the good. He's on the far side. Look at how his knees and hips are positioned. He's still square up with his shoulders, has his shield out in front of him. He turned to look back at this guy because look at where the guy's shield is. He knows that this guy's shield's hung up underneath his arm. This guy is entirely too close with his shield, but look at the good officer's support officer behind him. Again, knees, hips, ankles is all squared up. His hand is up high on his back. He is still there giving support. Now look at the officer with the asp. His feet and his legs are kind of close together. His body's all turtled up. He is not in a good position with his body weight to accept a charge. And making matters worse for this guy, again, is the officer behind him with his mask hanging down around his neck. Look at his body position. He's leaning backwards. He's not supporting this guy. He is not helping giving this guy some support from behind. He is backing up, and as he's leaning backwards. He's pulling on this guy's upper torso a little bit, and at a minimum, he's not giving the guy the support that makes you more confident in that situation, that you have a buddy behind you that is helping support you because you're working as a team together. This guy does not, I imagine, the guy with the ass doesn't feel like he's part of a team very well right now. So let's look at it a little bit more. And so again, here is another example of, look at the officer in the front, good positioning, all set to go. Look at the officer with the asp. He's upright, vertical. His weight is actually backwards, and his buddy is doing what? Backing up, kind of pulling on him, really not helping him a lot. All right, let's look at it now. Again, still the same thing. The two officers in the front, look at their body position. Who gives you the air of confidence? Look at the support officer for the officer with the asp. Again, he is looking backwards like, let's get out of here and head back. Okay, so now you have this guy come out here with his jacket just flipping around. Not really a big deal, but what's important to note here is right here's when the wheels start falling off, because what's going to happen here is you're going to hear a hubcap get thrown and you're going to hear some fireworks, an explosion go off, and that's when, watch the officer, the support officer behind the officer with the asp. That's when he's going to take off, but watch how this goes. Okay, so you hear the hubcap. Officer steps on the hubcap over there. The explosion just happened. You can see people over on the far side of the screen. They're running. They heard the explosion. But look who else is running. You see the officer with the asp? Look at his partner behind him. That dude, his knees and ankles and feet and shoulders are heading the opposite direction. He is a blue falcon. We used to call that a blue falcon in the military. There's another name for it I won't use in here, but it starts with BF and it's buddy, and I'll let you figure out what the last F word stands for in there, which is kind of interesting because when you look on the building in the background there, what do you see? You see the big letters B and F, and I think that building is named after this officer is heading away because he is a blue falcon. Now, again, look at the body position of the officer on the far side of the screen. Upright, shield ready to go. Look at the officer with the asp. Again, he's all cattywampus, and that explosion just added to the level of pucker factor for that officer. You can see it happen here now. Okay, look at the good officer. He's there ready to take a charge. Good feet positioning. He just told his other officer, like, hey, let's get out of here. And then look at the support officer in the back. He's yelling, let's go, let's go, let's go. Now, right here's where the wheels fall off this, because when you turn and run, you lose your 360-degree security. As they were walking back, you remember they have 6 officers there. You had the 2 rear officers pulling rear security. But now as they're running, their rear is exposed, and their rear is exposed to all the rioters and whatever may happen. Okay, so here we have Pele coming out here, soccer boy, and he's doing a leg sweep. He is kicking the right outside leg of this officer, so it comes across as he's running, and that right leg comes across the back of his left leg, and he eats crap like you see in the video. You can hear him go down, and I'm going to stop it once he hits the ground. Okay, so you heard him hit. This guy hit with some force. Again, he's wearing a lot of heavy equipment. That riot shield is not light, and he goes down. Now, watch him when he gets up. He's also not quite all there. You can look up in the background there. You see everybody's feet heading away except for one officer who was one of the back 2 officers, their rear security, who has turned now to help support this guy a little bit. Okay, here's where a little bit of an issue I have. If you're helping support someone, when your buddy goes to the ground like this officer is, this other officer's still like, hey, I'm going backwards. Let's get out of here. Man, at that point, if you're not a blue falcon, you step up between that officer and the bad guys, and you give that guy a minute to get his wits about him to get up and help him out. Otherwise, that officer is still out there kind of a sitting duck. I want to bring your attention to the very far end of the screen, the back side of the screen. Do you see those feet up there? There is a set of officers, 2 sets of officers' feet heading towards this officer. They're running over here right now. Now, this is the awesome part. This part I just love, and watch how this goes. I'll work you through it here. So he gets up, and he's staggering. His shield is broke. This guy is just like, oh, this sucks. Now, a couple of people that I want to point out here. Remember I said that there's 2 sets of feet were coming in? Look into the back. You see there's 2 officers running in. There's actually a third. You can't see him because he's behind the shield off to the left. But look at the officer there in the middle. He has his face mask cocked back. He has his left hand up. And his right hand, he has an asp. Just like the guy getting up off the ground. Except this guy with his shield up knows how to use it. Now, someone else I want to point out here is the big guy to the right that has the blue hoodie on, the glasses, and he's looking at this guy. I don't see him running in to kick the shit out of this guy or anything, but watch what happens here. Okay, so this guy now, the big guy in the hoodie, he stops and sets up. These 3 cops just ran in. The one cop runs over and grabs the cop that's getting up off the ground, assisting a buddy, unlike the blue falcons that just ran off and left this dude. Now, look at the guy with his asp in the air. His face mask is up. This officer, when you see his face, this dude knows his shit, and he knows what's going on here. Again, face mask up, asp up. He is ready to lay the hate down and split this dude with the hoodie wide open. Now, watch what happens. What did he do right there? That officer with his face mask up. Let's go back and see if I can back this up just a scotch, and let's watch that again. Officer comes up, wham, drops, look at that right there, drops the, there you go, drops the asp right in front of that dude. Look at him stretched out. If you've never dealt with an asp, they do not feel good. They hurt, they are solid, and he could have split that dude wide open. And what did he do? Everybody, including the reporters there, are like, oh, let me get away from this dude because this guy just stepped in and took charge of what 6 other officers weren't doing. This guy has just de-escalated this whole incident, and watch. See that? Now he yells at the guy, get back, and yelling, this officer in the front is a stud. This dude should be recognized by his department if he wasn't, because this guy just de-escalated the situation and helped probably get these other officers from getting their asses kicked. Now watch this as they go back some more. See him? He just starts jiggling back like, oh, I got that. Now look at him. Look at his face right there. That dude is smiling. He is calm. He is cool. He's collected. He just sorted out a huge problem and de-escalated a little corner of this riot. Again, look at that face. Look at that confidence. And he didn't hurt anybody in the process. This officer should get the Officer of the fucking Year award right here. And now look at that as he hops back like, all right, guys, look at this, man. That guy is a stud. Now, look over on the left. You see all the way to the left of the screen, there is the officer with the broken shield that has not been having a good day. The other officer with the asp, whose buddy went off and left him, right? And his buddy is right there in that mob of officers standing there. Look at the officer that's walking away that has his face shield up right now. That's a different officer than the one that went in with his asp. Watch what he does. Do you see him reach out? He just congratulated, told the officer that went in with the asp and didn't split anybody's head open and de-escalated this. Good job. Now, the officer that was the support officer is facing away. You see him, he's the shortest one there in the middle of this group of officers. Watch the guy who got taken down to the ground here in a second. So back here, you see the guy, he just cocked his head. This is the officer who went to the ground. He's like, what the hell happened out there? What's going on? Now watch this. Do you see him shaking his asp? He's like, what the F is going on? Boom! Shoulder checked the bad officer. The officer that just bolted and ran and didn't give him support. He went up and let him know it. So that officer that was having a bad day, that dude has a little set of cojones on him. And he said, you know what, dude? You suck, you Blue Falcon, because you ran off and left me, and he shoulder checked him. And there you have it, folks. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the awesome of dealing with civil disturbance, especially if you find yourself in the middle of a riot. And who knows when that might happen these days. Now, if you want to help me get over some ugliness and the bad, please share this video if you found it valuable. Comment down below, like it, ring the bell, subscribe, do all that stuff, because we know the ugly reality is that YouTube and social media hammers channels like this and does not get our stuff out there. They throttle us, they demonetize us, they do all that stuff to prevent messages like this from getting out there. So please help those who may benefit by sharing it with them, and I would really appreciate it. So please stay safe, secure, and healthy, and never forget, you are just one prep away from being better prepared. Bye for now.